which I mentioned, it happens in the year 2019. In the year 2019. So this is a movement that emerged in the northern Nigeria as a cultural bold extensions of the global Me Too campaign. So it happened in the regions known for its conservative values and silences around gender-based violence. So surveillance, especially young women's, turned to Twitters and Facebook to share their experience of sexual abuse, harassment, and also assault using the hashtag #ArewaMeToo. So this movement found strength and solidity in digital spaces, which often share an anomaly due to the fears of stigmas and retaliations. So the campaigns, as we all know, breaks long-standing cultural taboos and brought attention to the prevalence of gender violence in the northern communities. So because gender violence in the other senses in the northern part of the country it becomes something differently due to some natures that are coming into. So the movement sparks heated debate, but also a wave of support, advocacy, and also awareness that reaches religious leaders, policymakers, and civil society groups. That has led to renewed effort by the NGOs to educate communities on gender rights and inspired uh, the creation of safe space and helpline for the victims. So, though there was some faces challenges, the resilience of the Arewa Me to show how digital advocacy can challenge deeper root norms and drive conventions that were previously considered untouchable. Because if that campaign has not been done, I believe there are some certain norms which the northern part of the country have looked at it as a taboo. So in that aspect now it leads to changes of some policies by the NGOs. So it is compiled example of how event in conservative settings, the internet can empower the vulnerability to demand justice and accountability. So to the other side of the country, we have witnessed the other side of NSAS movement in 2020, which is a landmark digital advocacy campaign led by the Nigerian youth to protest against the brutality and abuse of special anti-agent anti-robbery squad, that is SAS, a notorious unit of the Nigerian police, to say. The movement begins online with victims and concerned citizens sharing stories, photos, videos of unlawful arrest, tortures, and killings under the hashtag NSAS. But what happened? As tweet and Instagram posts quickly transformed into the national and international campaigns uniting Nigerians across region, classes, and faith. So at that point, there's nothing like I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm from the north, I'm from the east, I'm a high class person, I'm a low class person. No, there's nothing like that one. So celebrities and influencers amplify the message. So why we are leveraging the digital tool to help organize the peaceful protest in the major cities and abroad, because it happens even across the other part of the world. So this digital uprising forces the Nigerian government to announce the disbandments of the SARS and promise police reforms. So despite the strategic climax of the movement with the Lekki toll gate shooting, where peaceful protesters were attacked, the digital documentation of this event ensured global outreach and support. So the NSAS movements have demonstrated the immense power of social media and youth-led digital activisms in holding the authorities accountable and pushing for justice in Nigeria. So it serves as a powerful reminder that with a smartphone, a little stories that you have, a network, even the most marginalized ones, can lead to transformation changes. So can we go to the next slide, please? So in the context of that one, for me now to begin deeply after the motivational case studies, which we look at it as a driving forces to draw our attention back to what we are trying to discuss about this topic. So these are the contents that I think is very important for us, because if we are going to look at the scope of the course entirely, is a course that will take us almost 3 months to be discussing about digital advocacy, because even the social media tools We can be able to be taking them one after another, Facebooks, Twitters, and all these things to discuss about them is something differently. So we now narrated it into these four topics to discuss. We look at introduction to digital advocacy. We look at the audience targetings and engagements. We look at how to craft a content strategy. What are the strategies that you needed to create these contents? And then there are some legal and digital right, and also involving ethical consideration that has to be looked into when you are into digital advocacy. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. So in that one, the first lessons, as I said, we're going to look at introduction to digital advocacy. In this aspect, we have to look at it. What is this digital advocacy? Because somebody will be asking this question. You were talking about digital advocacy. What is this digital advocacy? So digital advocacy refers to the uses of digital tools and technologies like social medias, websites, mobile apps, and email. Because sometimes, if you can understand, you used to receive an email which you have not subscribed for, saying that you should sign petition for social things. So all these things are used to promote a causes or influence public's opinions and policy. And what is the purpose behind it? The aims is just to reach a wider audience quickly. Because what we have been doing before, the physical protest, we have encountered a lot of challenges from the police brutalities to even the shooting because of what happens. We can look at the references with what happens in the like Target. So the purpose of this one is to reach a wider audience because I believe majority of Nigerians currently now that stay in the urban cities uses mobile phones and social media. So all these things is just to mobilize supporters and create lasting social impacts through digital means rather than to be using the traditional face-to-face method. Because if you are now being directed to do a campaign, physically it's going to be very difficult for you because getting the people at that moment and the resources is going to be a stunted block for. So, but how does it evolve? This advocacy is a name that is given under a broader umbrella. We mentioned earlier that we have the physical campaigning, which was normally called a traditional method. So advocacy was once relied heavily on that nature, the in-person printed material like flyers, posters. I believe some of time now we use them also, and the mass media like TVs and radio broadcasts. But the narrations of developing countries like Nigeria now have changed. If you can go to a TV radio, you want to provide to make a protest on social issues. Since that radio stations are mainly by the government, it becomes very difficult for you to have a time to even speak about it. So these methods were, in one way or the other, effective, but are limited in reach and speed because using that traditional methods is said to be less speedy. So now a transformation to a digital shift comes into with an internet and a mobile technology. Advocacy campaign now uses online tools that allow instant communications and broader participations. So the campaign can now go global within an hour. And we can say thanks to the social media and the viral contents, making it easier for small groups to even get bigger support. Because for Nigeria, you can be able to advocate for something and internationally it becomes recognized and it can be accepted and it can be voice over. So, but how can you advocate using digital tools? There are some settings, tools, and platforms which we use them. Some, like I mentioned earlier, they are called social media platforms, like the use of Twitters, Facebook, Instagrams. All these ones allow us to create posts, trends, and lift videos that engage millions individuals. I believe most of you have used all these things, but we use them in one way or the others in making chat, in watching phonographics and some other things without using the advantages of them. But some of us have long been using them for advocacy. So there's also this use of email campaigns and newsletters. For instance, in PowerShift, we are planning to start releasing newsletters which speak about our environment. What is the challenges that people are facing within some certain areas? There's some also an email campaigning that you can be able to set up, like in the case of change.org. So you can use that platform to sign a petitions, to send an email if you have a bulk of emails of an individual. So this target email list help you advocate and send regular updates, such like petitions or donation requests directly to supporters. So also there was said to be like a website and blogs which serve like a central place for the informations, resources, and call to actions. Blogs provide deeper insight into issues. So we have video platforms like YouTube's and TikToks we use to create emotional, powerful videos that can be educative and inspire others. Like I mentioned, these petitions can be signed using change.org, which enables to gather signatures and show public support for policies and changes and also social justice. So, how can you leverage these things? First and foremost, you have to understand who are those your audience. Who are you targeting to? You have to understand who you're trying to reach out. Are you trying to reach out to youth or policymakers? Because these social media platforms that I have mentioned earlier, if you can understand, like in Nigeria or across the whole world, there are some certain social medias that are being used by different classes of individuals. For instance, Twitter. Twitter has a different power compared to Facebook. But in the case of youth campaigning, we can say the influence of Facebook is even more powerful than in the case of Twitter. But policymakers, if now you wanted to speak up on something that you wanted policymakers to see and to even act on it, I believe most of them, 90% of them uses Twitter. So also, are you targeting a donor? Because there's an instant you can pledge for a donation in order to correct some certain problems that is affecting within the community. There are so many donors, but how are they going to know that you are facing these problems? Is through the advocacy, or is it a general problems? So you tailor your message to the interest and the concern. But before then, like for me, in the case of being someone that is in the fields of AI and data sciences, if I wanted now to understand my audience, or if I wanted to make an advocacy, I leverages the power of the analytic tools like Google Analytics. These Google Analytics allow me to undergo an advanced data analytics research in order for you to be able to understand what is the trending problems. There was a paper that I released on COVID-19 vaccination sentiment. That is a paper on sentiments analysis that try to get all the opinions of individuals across Nigeria that speaks about the issues and the influences and the impact or the effect of the vaccine or COVID-19 on them. So we try to gather all these tweeters from a Twitter API Academy that serve like a bank of opinions of people. So you went there and scrapped all the information we required across the logical geopolitical zones of Nigeria, and we gathered our data and we make an analysis on them. We get the informations of the people opinion. So that helps you to understand who engage with your content and when. And if you now try to set an advocacy, you will be able to understand your audience. So after you understand your audience, then you personalize the message. Instead of generic post that we are making, you have to create a message that speaks directly to specific audience. Now you want to make an advocacy to youth. So you use the language and the preference format different from the way if you want to advocate for a policymakers, or if you want to make an advocacy or a request to a donor, or it is a general public advocacy. So you now first and foremost understand the audience, How do you understand the audience? You use, in a case like me, I use analytic tools like Google Analytics or Facebook Insider. So this Facebook Insider will give you a hint on what is the trending issues. We normally used to see informations on Facebooks and we act on them. Sometimes they are not true. How do you understand the generosities of an information, the genuinity of it? So you go deeply to understand what is the problems. After that one, so who are the target audience that you want to advocate for? Are you attacking youth to change their narrations and attitude, or you are targeting toward policymakers, or you are targeting toward donors? After you get that one, then the next step is to personalize the message that goes toward the target audience. Then you encourage the interactions. How do you encourage the interactions? You use tools, you use comment sections, you use question and answers and hashtag to spark the conversation and make followers feel involved. Because if you use all these mechanisms, it encourages the interactions of the advocacy. You use the hashtag because even in a case whereby we wanted to get the opinion, the polarities of the opinions of the people, whether on the certain issues, like in the case of sentiments analysis, we use the hashtag format. We now say that, okay, machine generate all informations that has so hashtag. So it will pull out all the information for you. Then you analyze the informations using different mechanisms of natural language processing, and you understand the polarizations of that information. Is it negative? People were complaining about it, or people are positively talking about it. From that one, then you can be able to make an advocacy if it is negative. So how do you create this content? There are some certain strategies you organize these contents. Like I mentioned earlier, we write a clear message. When writing this clear message, you should have an emotional appealing on it. That message should be simple, direct, and stay emotional. Whether hope, anger, empathy, but make it to drive an actions. Also, you can use like a visual uh, engagement graphic or video because people engage more with colorful images, infographics, and show videos uh, with what happens with the plain text. So, first and foremost, when you are trying to create that advocacy on the social media, after you understand your audience, so you should make it a clear one with an emotional appealing. That was the first step. Then, if necessary, to make it more truthful, you need a graphic image or a video of that narrations that you're saying with a simple, plain information about what is happening. Then you need to take much of your time to be constantly posting. You have to have a regular update so that you keep the audience informed and maintain campaign's visibility. Because there's no how you can make a post today and you expected the impact to be immediately. So there's need for you to be reposting it so that people can see and get to understand the need for this thing to be taken into actions. So also while you're trying to compile this message, it would be very nice to use a storytelling because real life stories humanize issues and make abstract problems relatively and urgent. But if you're using a narrative instead of using storytelling, it doesn't make it real life stories. So in making or in one of the strategic means for you to draft an excellent advocacy campaign, you use a storytelling that speak out about real life stories of what is happening. So also in trying to put out the campaigns, okay, I was told I was having like 5 minutes now. So there are some settings uh, campaigning plannings and executions that you need to have at the back of your mind. You need to set up a goal. You define what success look like, the numbers of the signatures that you required, the donations and the attendees. Because that KPI give the performance indicators and it helps track this. So for instance, you are now trying to get a signatures of 5,000 people. So you have now set up a goal. I wanted to advocate for campaigning that I wanted the presidents to see. You have set up your goal. But you can't put on a campaign without you having a set of goals. What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? I want to achieve a donations of $5,000 so that I can so help these communities. You have set up a goal. So set up a goal so that at the end of the campaign, you can be able to measure whether you have performed the rightful campaigning. Identify the stakeholders, recognize key people's organizations that can influence or support your causes so that when you're posting, you should be able to tag them so that they can be able to help you make it visible. Also, you choose the right channel. Like I said, there are different channels or social media platforms that use them for campaigning, Facebook, Twitters, and all these things. So you have to understand the right channels for the campaign. If you are targeting toward high government officials to see something, you know where to tag them. Twitter is the rightful one. But you wanted you to see, to act on it, you use Facebook. Then you launch the campaign, you monitor it, you adjust what is needful based on the feedbacks you received. By starting the campaigns, you can be able to track the performance daily and make changes based on the feedbacks you receive from the comments, whether it's positively or negatively. I can stop here because of the time factor. So, in conclusion, I we didn't go deeply into the ethical considerations with regard to that because I told you earlier. But in conclusion, I can say digital advocacy uh, is a transformative tool in our 21st century. But when we use wisely, it builds up the community, it influences decision makers, and spark lasting changes like we see in Arewa Me Too movement and NSAS. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bala, for that enlightening conversation. And thank you too for teaching me how to pronounce your name. While we are discussing Power Shift Africa, is something that I just remembered as you told me, okay, this is how to pronounce it. I remembered a conversation I had with somebody. I asked, okay, what about your English name? He asked me, would you meet a white man in London and ask him, what about your Igbo name? I said, no. He said, why is it compulsory for us Africans to have English name and not compulsory for them? He said he would rather teach them how to pronounce it than. So I think it's something that we Africans, we need to do. So while we are representing Africans, I like the fact that all of your names are all indigenous to our own African culture and language. Thank you so much, Bella. So, for the sake of time, if you have questions, you can just write them down. Okay, sorry, Amina, your hand is up. Sorry.
Sorry about that. I just have to like draw attention back. This is a very um this area that we're supposed to handle is something that we really need to go into the legal, digital right and ethical consideration. So please, I just want to like if Mr. Bala can give us like in 2 minutes just more explanation on this, please. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for the additional time. As we all know, we are all bounded by legal uh, rules and laws, and also there's some settings, ethics with regard to all aspect of life. So, with regard to that one, if you are an advocate, you have to understand the digital law. There are some certain laws that are binded digitally. So it's not necessary. only being a computer scientist or a computer engineer will know laws with regard to internet. So there are some certain laws, such like GDPR, General Data Protections Regulations, and we mostly speak about freedom of expressions, laws that may limit or support your activisms. So we have to understand our copyright violations. We used images, musics, and videos. You have right to do or get them from free or open sources, but we have to be very careful of copyright violations because sometimes you go and take something from an internet and advocate for or share it on social media without looking at the copyright that is attached to it. That will not make you an excellent advocate. So if you are going into a digital advocacy, you have to understand the law governing it. You have to understand the use of these images. What are the copyright on them? And also you have to be ensured fair representations, represent the communities and causes truthfully, avoid stereotype or bias messaging. Because in one way or the other, we are from different regions. We are of different religions. Don't be only one-sided. Justice is not a one-way traffic. The same thing, an advocate is not a one-way person. And also that one will help you to maintain the credibility. Always field fact checker and be transparent to build trust. Because when you start advocating truthfully, that will attract more people into your social network. And that will make you a digital advocate. But if you are biased or you are only representing or you are being a stereotype person, these are some ethical that you need to put in at the back of your mind as a digital advocate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So for the sake of time, we have 5 minutes to ask questions or seek clarity areas we do not understand or contribute to this wonderful presentation. So we have 5 minutes. So does anybody have any question to ask our presenter or something to add?
I think we have a question in the chat box already from Memuna
Okay.
Aruna.
Okay, Mimuna is saying, what strategies can digital advocates use to adapt their messaging to conservative audiences so that the conversation is both impactful and culturally sensitive? So, Mr. Bala, over to you. Or let me just read out all of the questions so that you answer all together. Um, Shamsuddin is saying, again, concerning the laws governing digital advocacy, the time given to it is short. It should be far more than this. Okay, okay. I think this is not a question. He's giving a suggestion. So, Mr. Bala, Nimuna has a question for you. You can answer. Thank you.
Okay. Memona was asking about what is it saying? Strategies, is that?
Yeah, she's asking for strategies
Mm,
that
mm.
digital advocates can use to adapt their messaging to conservative audiences so that the conversation is both impactful and culturally sensitive.
Yeah, like what I mentioned earlier, and based on the emotional case studies that we pointed out earlier at the beginning of conversations, like in the case of Arewa, uh, Me Too campaigns that happens. So Actually, it happens as a result of uh, the cultural norms of the people within that regions. So they try to understand that something is coming into them that is out of their cultures. So as now you are advocating, you have to be direct and also don't go beyond the needs of the people within that community. Make all necessary advocacy directly toward the target audience. Does that answer the question, please?
Okay, maybe now over to you. Confirm that answers your question.
Yes, you've answered my question. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you, and I think we can all hear you.
All right. So I would like to also add another one because he made mention of the Arewa Me Too movement. So, so my question is now in cases of trying to amplify voices, and then the conversation is actually how am I even going to put it?
Okay,
So
I think Memuna, you should type your question in the chat box. Then I think he'll attend to it later before the meeting is over. For the sake of time, you can just put the question. Okay, I'm seeing another question here. Oh, all of these
No, sorry,
questions.
please let's move on. Okay, okay. Thank you so much for all the questions, all the comments. We really appreciate, and I would really like to appreciate Bala. Thank you so much. That was a powerful session. So I just want to say a bit now before we move on to the next session. Like from what you see now, you should be able to understand that your project is about digital advocacy, and I hope from this session you'll be able to now know how you can shape your project to the targeted audience. So I'll give the mic to Benedicta so that she can introduce the next facilitator, and then we'll move on. Thank you so much.